Hello, everyone. I am Sophia Melonē, the Debt Demolisher, and it is an honor and privilege to be before you all for yet another informational session, live stream, as we discuss the latest and the greatest related to the extended repayment pause. So if you're just tuning into the room, feel free to share this live stream out with others who may have federal student loans. Just to make sure that I preface this conversation before we get started, is that this particular live stream is only going to be covering conversations around federal student loans. So if you have private loans, unfortunately, this conversation is not going to pertain to you. If you have federal loans, or even if you have loans that are visible under studentaid.gov, but your loans are not under the repayment pause currently, then this conversation also will not apply to you. So I'm excited to be before you guys during tonight's live. I know I have been going live a lot prior to during the month of November. This is the time where I host my annual Vet Your Spending Challenge over on my YouTube channel, the Debt Demolisher. So that the Debt Demolisher TV, that's the name of my YouTube channel. And it has really been taking a lot of my time going through the assignments, facilitating the live streams. And so I haven't had an opportunity to go live as much or post as much content on here. But nonetheless, I wanted to make sure that I came before you all. So if you have any questions pertaining to the repayment pause and the extension of it and the reason for the extension, please feel free to put those comments and those questions inside of the chat. And then that way I can address them. The core reason and the main reason why I wanted to go live is because of the recent announcement that was actually made yesterday by the Department of Education announcing that they would be extending the payment pause that was placed into effect when COVID initially happened. So for those of you who have federal student loans, many of you have been under the repayment pause, whereby you do not have a requirement to make a payment on your federal student loans. And also, none of your loans are accruing interest at this time. So your interest rate will be assigned at 0, and you would also have a required payment of 0 since March of 2020 up until now. When the repayment pause, when the debt relief was announced, or not really the debt relief, but when the 3-part debt relief plan was announced on August the 24th, a part of that plan was the extension of the repayment pause through December 31st, 2022. And that was said to be the final extension, the final pause under this entire effort that they've been doing as it relates to COVID-19. So because a part of that 3-part plan was, number one, to extend the repayment pause to December 31st, 2022. The second part of that plan was to be able to provide relief of either $10K or $20K to borrowers who would qualify based on your income and your tax filing status. And the third piece of that debt relief plan is the creation of an additional IDR repayment type plan, which will allow you to basically have a student loan payment that's no more than 5% of your discretionary income. So all of these are kind of in motion. The only one that was immediate was the one that extended the repayment pause to 12/31/2022. But because there are some hindrances on the main one, which is the 10K or the 20K debt relief, which is part 2 of the debt relief plan that they have announced that they're going to extend, and it's not even going to, they've already done it. So they've extended the repayment pause until one of these 3 things happen first. So I want to run through this real quick. So the first piece for this extended repayment pause is this. They are going to extend the repayment pause until either, number one, they are able to proceed with all of the programs that they've stood up as a result of the changes that they're trying to make to help people ease back into repayment upon all of the COVID restrictions kind of being lifted. The second piece of it is that either they're able to move through litigation, because we all know that the district court in Texas had basically put a stop order on the processing of the one-time debt relief. So many of you have indicated that you received notifications or you received some type of update indicating that you were approved, but you can't get the relief yet because of this block. So what the block caused, it stopped the Department of Education from actually being able to issue the relief money. So until they are able to get this block lifted, and that's why they appealed the Texas court decision, because the Texas court is a district court, so it's a lower court than the Supreme Court. And so that's where the Department of Education / DOJ, because DOJ handles their litigations, they're going to be, well, they've submitted an appeal and they're trying to state their case in front of the Supreme Court in order to see if it can get overridden from that standpoint. And so in efforts to have some leeway and have some time and not have people have to go immediately back into repayment status, which was supposed to be effective January 1, they've extended this repayment pause to allow time for the processing to go through. And if in the event, and this is the third piece that I was talking about, if in the event that they are not able to get this litigation taken care of, or if they're not able to proceed with standing up this one-time debt relief 10K or 20K, then the drop dead hard date is June 30th, 2023. So whichever happens first, theoretically, whichever happens first. So, but June 30th is initially the hard stop cutoff for the extended repayment pause. So what this means is you now have an additional 6 months in addition to the extended or the additional 4 months that we had received from when they extended the repayment pause from August 31st to December 31st, because they gave us an additional 4 months. Now we have an additional 6 months in addition to that before we go back into repayment pause. So here's what I want you guys to really think about as you think about your own personal approach. Again, granted, these are efforts, these are initiatives that the Department of Education believes that they have the authority to be able to stand up because of legislation that has already passed. We do understand that this is going to, of course, be a lot in terms of program dollars. But if they have the ability and if they have the legislation that supports that they have the autonomy to stand up programs in times of national disasters, then the Department of Education, if they feel like this is what is best to help alleviate the burden when it comes to student loans on those who are federal student loan borrowers, then that's why they kind of put this up into place in order to help ease people back into repayment status once everything kind of goes back into the full swing of things. But we do understand that this is law, this is government. We don't know what the higher powers may say. We don't know what the higher powers may do. But I do want you to be encouraged and I want you to be optimistic. But at the same time, I want you to think about your own game plan. I want you to think about your own game plan. So in the event, if it happens, kudos, you get the 10 or you get the 20, and either your loans will be alleviated in full, depending on what your current student loan balance is, or it could be reduced depending on what your student loan balance is, or we may have the option where we don't get any of it. And so the question then becomes, if you know that June 30th period is going to be the end date for the repayment pause, the end date for the 0% interest, you really want to begin to look at where you are in your student loan portfolio and what programs or what initiatives that you could possibly get into in order to help get whatever benefit that you will qualify for if that pertains to you. And if that does not pertain to you, you then want to think about your budgeting strategy or your debt elimination strategy on how you're going to tackle your student loans. I don't want you to think because you have a whole lot of student loans that you're not going to be able to get out of it. Trust and believe. I've had over $80,000 of student loan debt. I had $110 I think it was 110 or 112. One of them, 110 or 112 in student loan debt that I have paid in full myself. I went back and I looked at my own FSA ID records, and I saw my entire profile of how much loans I had taken out throughout the duration of my college studies. And so if I'm able to do this, I'm believing that you can too. And it's just a matter of you having that mindset of believing that you can be able to do it. Yes, it's going to take time. Yes, it's going to be strategic. Yes, you want to be able to take advantage of every little bit of assistance that you can get. But let's not focus on what may not happen, or let's not focus on what happened with the block. It's nothing that we can do about the block at this point. The only thing that we can do is remain optimistic and think about what's available now, and think about how we can leverage that to be able to develop our roadmap to get it to the place where we want to be. If you're tuning in here, feel free to share this out, like this, let people know what this conversation is about, because we want to focus on getting our game plan all the way together. Okay, so I see some questions. Let me go ahead and pop that up. See, okay, thank you for the pie, CLW. I just saw a pie pop up on the screen. Our moderator is in the building, Q Scott. Let's go. Hey, Q Scott, so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for holding it down and moderating us for tonight. Why can't the reason why none of these work is because they really don't want to give any relief? And, you know, I shared this before in prior live streams and in prior conversations that I've actually housed on my YouTube channel, the Debt Demolisher TV. So if you ever want to go back and look at any of the prior conversations that I've talked about, feel free to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe and check out the videos that I have on all of the student loan conversations, including the student loan debt relief. But we know that the reason why they actually put this lawsuit, quote unquote, into play is because of the FFEL loan portion of things. We know, as I've explained prior to, that FFEL loans, some are commercially held and some are federally managed. And the ones that are federally managed are the ones that the Department of Education has actually bought from the private lenders in order to kind of help assist them with their liquidity issues that they had. So when it comes to FFEL, those were originally private kind of bank loans that were backed by the federal government. And so because that program allowed the private banks to give student loans to whoever the student borrowers were, under the caveat that it will be backed, meaning if you ever go into default, that the government will cover it. The bank will end up getting their money anyway, and because it's backed in that regard. But once that program sunsetted, and they did away with the FFEL, meaning you can't take out any new FFEL loans, they were still managed by the commercial lenders. But the commercial lenders started to have liquidity issues, and so in efforts to help them out, the government bought back some. So some which were bought back by the federal government are federally managed FFEL loans, and some that were not bought back by the federal government are still commercially held loans. So what was happening when this one-time debt relief happened is that people were consolidating their FFEL loans into a direct loan, when technically they really could have been doing this for, what is it? The limited waiver, when the limited waiver was going on, but they were also doing it under the debt relief because there was so much going on between the two profiles and the deadlines and the announcements between them. So when people started consolidating, they start consolidating all of their FFEL loans that were privately held. You have to realize that the commercial banks are now losing money because they are consolidating their loans from the other federal, what's those people called? Lord, I'm losing my train of thought. Gosh, the loan services. So the loan services, so the institutions or the banking institutions that are considered loan services for the Department of Education, people were consolidating their loan over into a direct loan, which at this point is federal. And so because they are no longer getting any payments, they're no longer getting any monies, because that consolidated loan has now paid off that loan, has satisfied that loan. the commercial lenders felt like they were losing out on their money. So I believe that's why they were going into such a hoop roar about it, which is why the cases and all of that stuff was filed. So it's not really a matter of, the government doing this or the government not doing this. It's a matter of the people who's filing the lawsuit, the people who's worried about their money on the commercial bank side because they're losing out on the interest that you would have been paying under that commercially held loan. So at this point, it's in the law's hands. And that's why I say it's touchy. So it just really depends on how well the Department of Education, or the Department of Justice rather, can fight to defend their position to allow the Supreme Court to override what the district courts have put into play in terms of that block. So prayerfully, everything will work out. I received my refunds for payments made during the forbearance period and upset about the hold. I know, no worries. Well, at least you got your money back for anything that you paid during the forbearance, because that is one of the things that they did say that you'll be able to receive a refund on. If you work with your loan servicer, if you made any volunteer payments during the extended repayment pause, you can request your funds back for that. So you may be a little bit upset about the hold, but it's really nothing that we can do at this point. We just have to let the courts do what they do, unfortunately, until we hear more. I got my email that the relief application was approved, praying for everything to go through. Amen. I'm praying for everything to go through for you as well. That's the good news. And that was one of the things that I was saying a little bit earlier, that people are getting notifications saying, hey, your application has been approved. And if you've been approved, then once they get that green light, those payments are going to be applied to your student loan balance in the manner in which I explained in the prior video of how the payments will be applied for the one-time debt relief. So the good news is, that they are looking at the applications. They are processing the applications. And so they haven't stopped that. The only thing that the court order has stopped is their ability to actually be able to issue the relief, payment. That is where the holdup starts. So the good news is, if you already have your email, hold on to that, save that email, because that just goes to show that you qualified. And I'm not sure if they told you how much, if you qualified the 10 or the 20, but that's still a good sign, a very good sign. Stay encouraged and stay prayerful. That's right, cute Sky. Sally Mae is more so private loans. And that's another thing. If you have private loans, this isn't really gonna, this doesn't apply to private loans. I said that in the beginning. How can you get caviars off the caviars list? I'm not sure what that means. Just got the #1 gift badge. All right, CLW just got the #1 gifter badge. Yay! Thank you so much for the gifts. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the shares and the pumpkin pies. And speaking of pumpkin pies, I love pumpkin. I need to get me a pumpkin spice latte from Starbucks tomorrow morning. No, it's Thanksgiving. Maybe I'll get it on Friday. What about bars defense cases? So bars defense cases will still operate as normal. There has been no litigation issues related to that. It will go under the normal process. If you went to a school that you believe has misled you, and whatever the criteria is for the bars defense, you could submit an application for that. If you've attended a school that has already had a bars defense claim process against them, then more than likely whatever discharges that you will be qualified for is said to happen automatically. But you have to make sure that you go to the findings listing on studentaid.gov and read on the report to see what the criteria was and what they found, and then see what academic years, because normally they'll tell you what academic years they're going to be covering in terms of whatever the bars defense discharge is. And then if that pertains to you, then more than likely it'll be automatic. But if you've already submitted an application, then of course those who submitted the application for that particular university or institution, then they will share the criteria of what will be forgiven, or not really forgiven, but what will be discharged, because that's what bars defense is. If only my student loans were set up like a car loan. Amen. Only if they were. I received a letter, but on pause. What does that mean? So I'm not sure what letter, if you received a letter, but it says, but on pause. If you received a letter of approval, then that means that they're letting you know that you qualify for the one-time debt relief. But because of the block that I was just explaining, that they cannot issue any relief at this time until they get the green light from the courts to proceed. So that means if you got approved, they just can't issue it yet. That's what that means. I got approved for debt relief, but it's on pause. Yeah, so that means that they can't issue any money until everything gets cleared out. My loan was bought out by Navient. Am I qualified for the forgiveness? So if you're talking about the one-time debt relief, you have to, my question to you would first be, are you under the repayment pause? That would be my first question. My second question would be, what kind of loan do you have? So if your loans were bought out by Navient, did you refinance them into a private loan? Like, help me understand, because Navient is no longer a legitimate loan servicer for the Department of Education. So for anyone who has had Navient as their loan service provider and they have federal loans, then their loan accounts should have transferred over to Aid Vantage at this point. So it should have transferred over to Aid Vantage. So number one, I would check to see what kind of loans do you have. Do you have direct? Do you have Parent Plus? Do you have FFEL? Like, what kind of loan do you have? Look at the description there. And then if it was a private, meaning you refinance out of a federal into a private, then it won't apply to you, unfortunately. Thank you guys so much for the follows. Thank you so much for the follows. We consolidated our loans as married in 2005. It's been a nightmare. So you probably did yours under the joint consolidation spousal loan. So if you did that, and I don't know if you're public service or not, but at this point it's probably a little bit too late. But I have been talking about this for months and weeks and days, over and over and over, until the public service loan forgiveness limited waiver expired on October 31st. So at this point, it probably really wouldn't benefit you because that limited waiver period has expired. And I don't know if you work in public service or not, but one of the things that they stood up a little bit before that limited waiver deadline was the ability to separate your joint consolidation spousal student loans. So that could help folks get to public service loan forgiveness faster, because at first joint consolidation loans could not qualify for public service loan forgiveness. Correct. Her live tonight is addressing this very thing. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Q Scott. I got a letter saying I'm approved. Is it true? So I was just explaining that. If you got a letter, then that means the Department of Education is processing all of those applications that went in, and they're letting people know who's approved and who's denied, because some people just applied not realizing that they didn't even have federal loans, or they apply not realizing that their income doesn't even qualify them for it based on their tax filing status. So depending on when you submitted your application, or actually they're still accepting applications, to be honest with you, they just can't process it. They just can't process anything. Oh, wait. Let me not say that. They might have took the thing down. Okay, yeah. You can't apply right now, but if you've already applied, they're processing the applications for everybody who has applied. And then once the green light goes, the application will be reinstated for people who did not have an opportunity to apply. And then for those who've been approved, to be able to receive those funds applied to their federal student loan accounts. Let me be clear, because you ain't going to get no money back, okay? You ain't going to get no money back unless the only way that you'll get money back is if you paid monies in excess during the extended repayment pause. Then they'll give you whatever the difference is if you have any left. Okie dokie. I got the same approval letter from the Department of Education. Okay, yep, I was just talking about that. Just got the number 2 gifter badge. Thank you, Chef. We have a chef in the building. Thank you, Chef Liz. Thank you for the gifter badge. You're number 2 on here. Okay, what's your opinion on the outcome? I think I kind of talked a little bit about that, CLW. So hopefully you heard me kind of share my thoughts. I really don't like to give too much opinions on things. I more so like to state from facts, and then also like to state like why, what I think will happen, just like I kind of gave a little bit of the opinion of why the block was actually kind of put in place in the first place. So that's probably to the extent that I'll share. But really, I'm just going by the announcements that are coming out and just hoping that everything is going to, work out. I've been paying this whole time, but Navient stated that they do not apply to them. So it's probably because you have one of those loans that are not managed by the Department of Education. So if your loan is managed by Navient, who is a private or considered commercially held, then unfortunately, it's not going to apply to them. It will not. It will not. Is the original loan amount what counts, or all the interest is going to be there? So I'm assuming you mean when the debt relief is applied. I'm assuming that's what you mean. So they're going to apply it to the overall balance. So it's not really going to be broken down by interest and all of that. They're going to apply the funds based on your balance. And then once those funds have been applied, then they are going to re-amortize your balances so that way you can get your new student loan balance going forward based on whatever interest rates have been set at that point. Because right now you are at 0. So if you're at 0% interest, once everything kind of goes back into play, it may go back to whatever your original interest rate was. But for those of you who consolidated, your interest rate is going to change. And so they take like an average. It's a formula that they use to figure out what your new interest rate is going to be if you end up consolidating, and even what it may be once everything kind of goes back into repayment status. So because right now everything is set to 0, it's kind of hard to tell. And many of you may not even remember what your original or what your prior interest rates were prior to this repayment pause going into effect back in 2020. If I owe less than $10,000, should I get what I paid during COVID, or will that be sent to me? So if you owe less than $10,000 and you were making payments during the COVID period, meaning voluntary payments, meaning you were making payments during the repayment pause, then you can, and this is what I would do if I were you, if you know that because what they're going to do, if you choose not to request your refunds from your loan servicers now based on any payments that you made in excess during the extended repayment period, but what if those payments brought your balance down to $10,000? So you have to kind of look at what requesting that money back is going to do or not do for you. So if you have been paying and now you're at $10,000, or you just got to $10,000, or maybe you had already been below $10,000 prior to, you can request your monies back now before that debt relief gets applied. Because how they're going to do it is they are going to, if let's say you qualify for $10,000 in debt relief, but you only have a $9,500 balance. So let's say you have a $9,500 balance, you qualify for the 10. They're going to clear and resolve your balance for the $9,500, But what if you paid during the pandemic, you paid $700 or $800 or $900 worth of payments during the pandemic times? The only amount that you're going to get back is whatever the difference is between the $10,000 and the $9,500. So that will mean that you will only get $500 back, as opposed to if you went the route now of trying to recoup all of those funds back. I'm not sure how much it is, but if it ends up being more than $500, then I would go the route of seeing if I could get my monies back, but just realizing that that's going to now increase your balance because they're going to reverse those payments out. So just look at it twofold. Just kind of see how many payments have you made during the pandemic. So how much would that even be for you to request it? And then you also have to think about how long it may take for them to process that refund for you if you go directly to your loan servicer, or if you want to wait until the relief money is applied and then you request the difference for whatever you've paid up to the extent of whatever is left in your relief money. I have a negative 39 payments. You must be talking about PSLF. What does it mean if you have 179 qualified payments? That's a good sign. If you have qualified payments, then that means that you have definitely met the 120 for public service loan forgiveness purposes. So if you have 179 qualified payments, then you should be able to receive loan forgiveness under public service loan, which will relieve your remaining balance for whatever that loan type is. At this rate, is it a race to see if the relief will come before some of my loans age out of 25 years? So this is a great question, because I'm glad you brought the age piece up. So for many of you who may or may not know, and this is only for those of you who are on IDR plans. So there is an IDR forgiveness that will forgive your remaining balance if you are on an IDR plan for either 20 or 25 years. I think it's 20 or 25, depending on what kind of loan, what kind of IDR plan that you're on. They will forgive the remaining balance at that point, which will be, the entire balance for that particular loan type or that particular loan disbursement that reaches 25 years or 20 years under an IDR repayment plan. So I would take advantage of both. So whatever gives me the greatest leverage first is what I will be focused on getting. Because even when it comes to these IDR forgivenesses and the PSLF forgiveness and all of that, it's by disbursement. So if you have multiple disbursements and you never consolidate it, then you have to think about, you're going to be staggered in getting your forgivenesses until each of those loan types hit whatever that criteria is. If it's 10 years for PSLF purposes, or if it's 20 years for IDR purposes, or if it's 25 years for IDR purposes. So yeah, they took off for loan forgiveness. I'm so happy for that. Wasn't approved for PSLF. Okay. All right. She will, if she gets time tonight, please also check. Okay, thank you, QC. Was there another question or something? Let me go up. I think it dropped down, so I missed some of it. Discuss public service loan forgiveness. Okay, yeah, I've talked about public service loan forgiveness a lot, but I'll do something high level. So public service loan forgiveness, and now like the perks and stuff are pretty much over at this point. But if you work for a public service organization, whether it be government, nonprofit organization, or it be a nonprofit organization that does not have a 501c3, but it does offer a qualifying service, if you are under a qualified repayment plan, meaning you have the right loan type and the right repayment plan, then you will be able to qualify for public service loan forgiveness after 120 qualified payments. And those qualified payments would mean that you would have to make your payment in full, on time, and it has to be under the right repayment plan while you're working with the qualified employer, and you also have to still be working with the qualified employer at the time that you receive the forgiveness. So now that the regular PSLF rules are still in play, but they did state that they're going to be incorporating some of the limited waiver rules into the normal PSLF rules so it could help borrowers who work in public service to get to public service loan forgiveness faster. But that has not been solidified yet, but they did say that that will be coming forward. And once all of that is announced and it's been finalized, of course, I'll let you know what that is. But for PSLF purposes, the main perks, the deadline for the main perk stuff is pretty much over if you don't already at least have one public service loan forgiveness form on file that has been approved. Because they did say as long as you get one in, then you can get the rest in later. If you have more payments to make, so I'm going to create a plan to repay. Okay, I have more payments to make, so I'm going to create a plan to repay. Amen. I'm so glad that you said that, because that's what I was saying earlier when we started this live stream about creating your alternative plan and not, waiting. Like you can take measures in your own efforts, and if the other thing happens or if another blessing comes into play, that's just going to be an added benefit for you. That'll be an added benefit to get you there closer than you probably would have thought that you would have been able to get there. So definitely come up with your plans. Be strategic in how you do it. Leverage the resources that are available. I'm a huge advocate of that. I'm not saying that you have to expend all of your resources, but definitely use what's available, apply for what's available, but still make your plan so that you can do your due diligence as well on your end to contribute in whatever way you can contribute towards repaying your student loans. I applied for PSLF and teacher forgiveness. Good job. Good job for that. Good job for that. I'm so glad that you did that. So if you did teacher forgiveness, I thought teacher forgiveness was 5 years of teaching consecutively. So if you're still a teacher, Tangela, let me know. So do you think the Biden loan will be resolved with the courts? I'm praying that the Supreme Court will override it. But again, this is a litigation thing, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer at all, and I don't know what happens inside of these courtrooms, but I'm hoping that they can defend their argument well enough by literally going to the HEROES Act legislation, which they've already done, that shows that they have the ability to be able to stand up this program. But I think the issue is the cost of it, because it's going to have to be funded in some way, shape, or form. And we don't know. That's the part that I can't opine on, unfortunately. So glad for the pause. I was not ready to pay those loans back yet. And I'm so glad that you said that, Miss Kim, because we have to look at everything as a source of help. So many people are dreading going back into repayment status. And I'm glad that they took this initiative based on what they already know that they can do to extend it. And I believe probably based on language, laws, interpretation, or whatever, June 30th is probably the longest that they can go. And that's why they've made it clear on this website that whichever comes first is when the repayment pause will be lifted. But the absolute latest, no extensions beyond that, is June 30th, 2023. But that lets you know that you have 6 months, a little bit more than that, because we're still in November, so 7 months to begin to think about your plan. If the relief happens or if it doesn't happen, what are you going to do? So I think that's what we need to be focusing on in the interim, but still being optimistic that the relief may happen. But we do want to be prepared and have our alternatives in case it doesn't. Because once June 30th hit, come July, you're going to have to start repaying or whatever grace. Not even that. 60 days after that. Let me clarify. They said 60 days after. So let me go back and clarify that. So if they are able to stand up their programs 60 days after they get the green light is when the repayment pause will be lifted. Once they're able to rectify the litigation piece, 60 days after that, the payment pause will be lifted. If neither of those things happen and we reach June 30th, June 30th is the cutoff date, and 60 days after June 30th is when the repayment pause will go into effect. So now that gives us an additional 2 months. So really, you have more than 7 months. You have 9 months at this point. You have 9 months at this point to really begin to think about your strategy and how you're going to handle your student loans once it goes back into repayment status. Any loan forgiveness for nurses. You have private, Navient. I had a conversation. I think I did a video that talked a little bit about nurses. There aren't many programs that are available. If you go to my playlist, I have a playlist on private loans. And under that playlist, excuse me, you guys, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. So under that playlist, I did talk about one of the repayment assistance programs that they have for those who may be in nursing. But a lot of the nursing assistance or nursing repayment programs is more so like company or organization driven. So you kind of have to look for those to find them. But I did promise that I was going to go over that and share some content on that. So once I can get through my Vet Your Spending Challenge, which is one of the reasons why I'm getting ready to end this live soon, because I have to finish preparing and get myself ready for 8:30. Speaking of which, if you guys want to tune in to our Vet Your Spending Challenge, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you go to my page, you'll be able to click on the link and it'll take you right to where to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've been going live on my YouTube every night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we have been getting it all the way in. We are now on day 23. We're going to be entering into day 23 of the Vet Your Spending Challenge. So even though you can't register, you can still come in and listen and get some of the lessons based on what I've been covering. But I did promise that I was going to talk about nurses. So once I get through the Vet Your Spending Challenge and once I get through my annual clarity retreat, I'm definitely going to be coming in with a banger to really show you how you can look for resources that may help you if you're not in public service, or if you're not on an IDR, or if you don't have any federal loans at all, and you're trying to figure out what other alternatives you could do for private loans. It's not many, but it doesn't hurt to research. That brings up a good point. Does PSLF forgiveness include interest? Yes, so it includes the balance. So for public service loan forgiveness, whatever loan you have, once that loan reaches 120 qualified payments, the balance in full gets forgiven. The balance in full gets forgiven once you hit 120 qualified payments. So that includes principal and interest. I need some water. I don't have any water up here. I need some tea. I probably need to make some tea. Q Scott, I have a question for you too, by the way, because I haven't had any chai latte, I think is what you call it. Chai, tea, latte, whatever. I haven't had any of that from Starbucks before. I had it from Panera, but I think I want to try one of the chai teas tomorrow. Maybe not. I keep saying tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but whenever I can go back to Starbucks. But that just made me think of it. But I need some tea right now because my throat is getting a little bit raspy. Would it be best to consolidate? That's going to be an individual basis now. I mean, at this point, all of the perks that were related to consolidation are pretty much not really prevalent, or wouldn't really give you an advantage, because it'll just reset you at this point if you have public service loan forgiveness that you will be able to qualify for. But that's a case-by-case basis when it comes to consolidation, and you would have to kind of look at your situations, your circumstance, what kind of loans you have, what kind of loans you want to consolidate, and the cost to consolidate, because you're going to have a whole new interest rate. All of the interest that was on those prior loans are now going to be capitalized. And so you have to think about that, the affordability of it. And I talk about that a lot on a lot of the videos that I have saved on the YouTube channel. I got my approval, but already paid off my consolidated loans with Navient. So when you say you've already paid off your consolidated loans, were you making payments through the COVID time? Because if you were making payments, volunteer payments, meaning that your loans were in under the repayment pause, so you did not have to pay, but you were making payments anyway while the interest was 0%, because that is another strategy to kind of help get your balances down. But if that's what you were doing and you got approved for the one-time debt relief, I was explaining that a little bit earlier, that you could get refunded for up to the extent of the relief amount that will be remaining up to the extent of what you paid. So it really depends on how much volunteer payments you made during the repayment pause, and then how much relief you will get. They'll probably give you the refund for whatever that amount is, up to that extent. But again, you said Navient, so I'm hoping in your case you have you have federally managed Navient loans, because your Navient stuff should have transferred to Advantage if it has not done so yet. When do we have to officially pay back? Loans are still on hold. Yes, loans are still on hold. So I think I was just explaining that you have 60 days from any one of those dates. So 60 days either from the point in which they're able to stand up the programs. You have 60 days from the date in which the litigation gets resolved, meaning there's no more block, or 60 days after June 30th, 2023. Whichever happens first. Okay. What does it mean when you have a -7 payments on PSLF? That's a good question. Let's see what comes up. Okay, so they say that typically implies that a refund due to overpayment is what that means. But I don't know how true that is, because I haven't seen that. Because if that was the case, then the person who had 179 qualified payments, it seems to me like theirs would have been negative, whatever is excess of 120. But that's a good question, and I would contact Mohila and ask them. But I'll look into that to see if I can find a legitimate response. I'll look into that to see if I can find a legitimate response. You speaking truth, Miss Kim. I see you. That inflation is real. Okay, Panera is my favorite chai tea, but Starbucks is good as well. Okay, Q Scott. Well, thank you. See, we here, Q Scott. We just be here. All the way here. Q Scott, that's my girl. That's my sister. That's my sister. My friend got an email saying she's approved for $20K, but is this the same application? Yes, it is. If she got approved, then just gotta wait until this block gets lifted, and she will get that relief. Okay, I need to check out your YouTube and get rid of as much debt as I can. Yes, Miss Kim, please feel free to check out the YouTube channel. I'll be going in over there. I'm giving all kinds of lessons all kinds of lessons. It's so much content over there. I had over 1,000 videos, but I took some of them down because there's just so many. I realized there's so much to go through. So I'm kind of doing a cleanse and a purge of a lot of my YouTube content. So that's my sign because my battery is low. So I need to get off of here and I need to get ready for the challenge at 8:30. So Miss Kim, if you want to pop on over and join us on YouTube at 8:30 in about 20 minutes, that would be so awesome. And I would love to see you inside of the room. Don't knock us off the map here in Texas. Okay. All right, guys. That is it for tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. When do I normally go live? I was going live here Wednesdays and Sundays. And then when we got closer to PSLF limited waiver, I was going live like crazy. And then vet your spending started. And then the limited waiver was over at that point anyway. So I've been focusing on that. But I will be going live again on Sunday to just answer any questions that you may have. We never know what news may come up, but I want to wish you guys a very happy Thanksgiving, praying that you all have a wonderful time with your family, with your loved ones. And if you don't have your loved ones around and you're not able to celebrate with them, I just want to encourage you to just remember to sit in gratitude and be grateful for the days that you have, the times that you have, the memories that you have, even all of the things that you have in your possession that you may not even have to pay for. I even had to think of that today because I got blessed today, y'all. I had a busy day, a very busy day today, and the Lord showed favor and graced me with like almost $900 discount on something that I had to pay for. So I'm grateful for that. So just being grateful for blessings, being grateful for favor, being grateful for just being nice. That's another thing. Just being nice will take you so far. Because I bet if I would have had an attitude with that person, they probably would have jacked up the price on me even more. But he was like, I'm going to see what I can do for you. I'm going to see what I can do for you. I'm going to see what I can do for you. Lord, lo and behold, he called me about 6 hours later and said, I know I quoted you this, but I was able to get you down to this. I said, thank you. I'm a praiser if you ain't know. I'm a praiser if you ain't know. Okay, you guys, I got to get ready. So come back on Sunday. We're going to go live again. If you guys have questions, I can maybe go a little bit longer, just depends. But wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. And remember, your financial prosperity awaits you, and so does your financial sanity. You already know what I'm going to tell you to do, and that's what? Get to work. And thank you, Q Scott, for moderating tonight's live stream. All right, you guys. Thank you all, my DDTV Gymmers, for your love. Bye.